There are 10 types of real estate that are so troublesome, you should steer clear of them at all costs. Honestly, even if someone gave me these properties, I'd likely give them away or sell them off at a huge discount. Learn from me and our several hundreds of members' experiences and save yourself the headache. Let's start alphabetically with the first one, cheap, raw land. Ever heard the saying, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is? Well, I've coached many people who've got lured into land deals offering 5, 10, even 20 acres plus for like $30,000. Now, when we're seeing everything else priced at like $500,000 plus for just an acre, it sounds like a steal. But beware. Cheap land is cheap for a reason. Otherwise, people like me or other investors would be snatching it all up. Usually, it comes with major challenges, like no local utilities. You'll struggle to find contractors willing to work on the land, and the power company might not even have power lines near your property. You'd be looking at potentially hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars to get power there. Or you could go off-grid. And let's face it, off-grid living is a lifestyle that doesn't appeal to most Americans and offers minimal equity. Now, other major issues include unbuildable topography and soil, hours away from the nearest city or town, zoning restrictions that prevent land development, and also landlocked properties with no access. And for that reason, we will be taking cheap raw land and ranking it at a D-. Now, it usually isn't worth it, but at the end of the day, it still is land and you can store stuff on it or you can just use it for your own personal recreation. A better option here is improved land. That is just outside of the urban growth area or near high traffic destinations. Improved means that utilities are either nearby or already on site, and the location is a twofer, where you get future appreciation potential as well as income production from the high traffic. Raw land is very challenging to purchase and develop, especially if this is your first time. Dealing with raw land for your very first time, whatever you think the time and cost will be, double it. And then when you think you're done, double it again. It's better to pay $200,000 for a workable 3 acres that has development and income potential than to pay $20,000 for 3 acres that you can't do anything with. Improved land with income potential definitely goes into our A tier. If you've got the vision and financing, potentially even getting you to S tier. And if you're familiar with the channel and this is your second video or maybe your third, fourth, fifth, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Next are dying neighborhoods. This one's tricky if you're not familiar with the local area or social climate. Just as there are up and coming neighborhoods, there are also many that are in decline. Now, there are many factors that contribute to this, but the biggest ones are high crime rates, homelessness and drug use, struggling education systems, loss of high-income jobs, and anti-small business environments. 2 critical elements influencing these factors are police funding and training, and 2, local government effectiveness, including landlord tenant laws and business incentives. Now, a prime example is a city that's near and dear to my heart that I'm very familiar with is Portland, Oregon. Once a beautiful, sought-after city, local politics have turned it into a cautionary tale. Defunding the police, decriminalizing drugs, allowing homeless camps, pushing out local businesses, as well as protecting squatters have all taken their toll on Portland, as you've probably seen in the media over the last 5 or 6 years, really going on over a decade now. Now, I've owned properties all over Portland, including Portland's Pearl District and Lloyd's Center District, both once great, phenomenal areas. The Pearl District property value has actually dropped $50,000 in the last 10 years. That's right. From 2014 to 2024, the value of that space, which was like a high-end penthouse style condo, has dropped $50,000 in 10 years. While the Lloyd District property has seen crime rates soar through the roof, gunshots going off, drug deals going on right outside of the building, and property values have stagnated for the last 6 or 7 years. Now, you may think that's all of Oregon or all of Portland, but values in other neighborhoods and surrounding areas have continued to go up by as high as 20 or even 30% over the last few years. And just to serve as an example, this is actually one of our guests' vehicles in front of the building just a couple months ago. If you think this is bad, wait until you see our top 3 worst property deals. Dying neighborhoods will go in our D tier because it's usually a gradual process that can still generate some sort of income, but definitely not something you want in your portfolio, or at least mine. Clear alternatives are established neighborhoods that are well kept, good schools, and low crime rates, but you may be priced out of these areas. So what you want to do is find areas where there's a lot of construction going on with both single family homes and apartment buildings, maybe even commercial. Pay close attention to the level of detail, construction quality, and the designs of the structures. This is usually a telltale sign of what's around the corner or coming up down the road in terms of quality of tenants, future homeowners, and the businesses that will be coming into the area. Another indicator are popular local businesses entering that space, such as restaurants, bars, and shops, to start that trendy feel that everybody wants to either walk, bike, or hang out at. The last hint is also if the local municipality or city passes any new bills or ordinances to improve a specific area of the city over the course of several years. These are all indicators that an area may be up and coming, and from my experience, I'd place this into a solid B tier. A small gamble, but when it pays off, equity and cash flows can really take off. This also applies to smaller towns and areas just outside of major cities. And the next one are the notorious HOAs, also known as legal communism or dictatorships. HOAs, homeowners associations, are often run by elderly, retired folks who finally get a taste of power. They obsess over HOA budgets, the length of your grass, your driveways, cars, and your deck color. All jokes aside, I will never invest or purchase another property within an HOA ever again. Their budgets and monthly dues often increase far faster than any type of inflation. It's mostly incompetent people who don't know how to budget, and you can get hit with special assessments running into thousands of dollars. I've personally been hit with an assessment of $6,000 and $4,000 for what the HOA board deemed necessary. Now, with monthly dues sometimes running into hundreds or even thousands, your budget can quickly become very strained very quickly, quite often surpassing or getting close to your mortgage of the home itself. Now, I could spend the rest of this video diving into HOA bylaws, CC&Rs, and the power-hungry minds that run them, but my advice is simple. Avoid them if you can. HOAs will easily go into, where is it? Oh yes, here it is. Hell on earth tier. The simple alternative is a property not in an HOA, but there are certain HOAs where it's a couple of dollars a month to take care of maybe some shared lawn or driveway maintenance that don't have any regulations on how you use or what you do with your property. Those are okay, but you definitely want to check the CC&Rs and the fine print because a lot of times they can also have limitations on what you do with your property. But these are hard to find and usually not the rule of thumb. The right properties without HOAs definitely fall into S tier. Okay, so next are industrial areas, which is kind of the style of this container home here. Now, if you see land or homes for sale next to or near industrial areas, run away. Unless you love the smell of chemical fumes, barbed wire top chain link fences, and a constant parade of trucks and trash, these areas are generally bad investments and potential health hazards for you and your tenants or guests. I'd also include homes next to major freeways into this category as well. There's some long-term studies from the brake dust and exhaust that's actually having a big impact on folks, especially kids next to major freeways. Now, the health and well-being of me, my family, and guests are far more important than any slight financial gain from investing near a noisy and smelly industrial area. Maybe it's the Pacific Northwest hippie in me, but I would never buy property next to a paper mill or concrete plant ever. Industrial areas are an easy D ranking. Lots of trash, pollution, crime, and difficult to make any money. A good alternative are old industrial areas that have been rezoned for new high-quality housing and small businesses. Even better, if the city is putting dollars behind that transformation, this is similar to up-and-coming neighborhoods. Rezoned industrial areas belong in B tier, great long-term play, but it can take a while for the legal, the financing, the funding, and the construction to all take place. After industrial areas, we've got lease deals. Naturally, this is where I slam Airbnb arbitrage and folks that push it, but I'm talking about all leasing deals. Outside of leasing a building or property for a legitimate business that's generating you cash flows and revenues, I avoid land and property leases at all costs. This includes international investments in places like Costa Rica, Vietnam, or Bali, where foreigners can only lease land, not own it, and they usually lease it for 30, 60, or maybe 99 years. Now, leases are tricky because the value of your rights to use the property diminishes over time, unlike owning property, which increases in value. Leases also put you in a different legal category that can be unfamiliar to most people. Leases can be broken, and you may not have all the rights and protections you think. In countries like China or Vietnam, which are communist, essentially like HOAs, the government can demand the property back on a whim or offer you a really lowball offer that you just can't refuse. When investing in real estate, cash flows, equity creation, and tax savings are the primary ways we generate wealth. By leasing, you almost always negate two of those three. Now, when it comes to lease deals and real estate investing specifically around land, this is definitely our F tier. Because of the equity and tax savings issues, you just don't get it. But also, you're at the mercy of a lease agreement and the landlord. Clear alternatives is lease to own options if you're cash strapped, or purchasing a fixer-upper outside of town where you can instantly start improving the property and creating that equity and take advantage of tax incentives as well as improve your income property. This strategy is completely overpowered if you find a property that can be subdivided or has favorable zoning where you can add multiple structures. The right fixer-uppers that can lead into land hacks belong in our S tier because they have the ability to hit all of our markers when it comes to cash flow, equity, and tax savings. If you want to learn more about this, watch my free training video after you finish this video and schedule a time with me and my team to see if you can work with us directly. Link down below. Now, the majority of tax savings comes from what we call bonus depreciation. This allows you to deduct a massive portion of a property's depreciated value from your taxes in just 1 year. Usually it's the first year of ownership. It's how I, along with hundreds of our members in our community, I'm sure a lot of you watching this right now too, save tens of thousands and sometimes even hundreds of thousands on taxes from W-2 incomes. To unlock these savings, you need a cost segregation report for your property. That's why I created a quick and accurate cost segregation service just for our viewers and members. It's fast, it's affordable, and it's backed by our audit protection guarantee. And if you ever did get audited, our accounting team will support your report on your behalf. Visit rentalcostseg.com and use promo code KAI100 for an extra $100 off. Link down in the description. The next one up is Section 8 housing. Now, there are many investors out there that focus on Section 8 housing. Other than the promised income from the government, there's not much that's attractive about this type of investment. After nearly 20 years of real estate investing and managing literally thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of guests and tenants at this point in time, there's a reason I transitioned from long-term rentals to short-term rentals and land. Besides the obvious high returns, no matter how well you screen tenants, there were always more issues with long-term tenants, and the property condition was always worse at the end of the lease. This was true with both our standard and high-end rentals. Long-term tenants just are more likely to let small issues go without fixing or reporting them, but those small issues add up over time and they can get a lot worse. And the landlord or the management company, if you choose to use one, often only becomes aware of them after the tenant leaves. With short-term rentals like this one, which has been active for about 12 months now, you have someone from your team in the property practically every week, if not multiple times a week. Now, with Section 8 housing, you're dealing with tenants who get vouchers from the government to pay rent. And from personal experience, they don't care as much for the property because, quite honestly, they're not paying for it. When you buy investment properties, it's not just about the cap rate, ROIs, and cash flows. You'll learn the potential headaches of dealing with evictions, courts, local governments, and tenants breaking lease rules. Those all outweigh the slight profitability of certain types of property investments. I do believe low-income housing should be available to families, and I fully support the government helping folks, but as an investment opportunity, it's something I steer away from. Section 8 and low-income housing can be a very difficult population to work with, and you pretty much can bet that you'll have to do a lot of repairs on your properties over the years. Cash flows will also likely be very thin considering the type of areas and tenants you'll be managing, and for those reasons, this will be going into our D tier. Great alternative is to find cities and states that have favorable landlord-tenant laws, purchase and cater to the higher discretionary income tenants, screen folks who make at least 3x monthly rent. I personally look at 4x now. Do a full background and credit score check along with employment history, pay stubs, and past references. The thing that kills profitability in long-term rentals are evictions, squatters, and damages. Taking the precautions up front by carefully selecting your demographic and then screening your tenants can alleviate a lot of those risks and even be profitable. But LTRs are still the long and slow game for most, so this will be ranked at our B- tier. Which leads us perfectly, just coincidentally, alphabetically, into tenant-leaning landlord-tenant laws. This is critical. Every soon-to-be real estate investor or current investor, land buyer, or property owner must understand that the moment a guest or tenant steps foot on your property, as is here in Oregon, they are awarded certain rights and protections. This varies greatly from state to state. Sometimes it starts on the very first day. Other laws kick in after 30 days and even more after 365 days. These laws are known as landlord-tenant laws. Now, there are states that are more neutral. and there are states that heavily lean in either direction. I avoid the ones that lean towards tenants and gravitate towards the ones that side with the homeowner. Just to keep up with the Portland bashing, Portland is notorious for siding with tenants and was one of the key reasons why I decided to leave the city and state. Go Google it right after you watch this video. Portland is literally ranked #1 in the country as the worst place to invest in real estate due to its landlord-tenant laws. They protect squatters and do everything in their power to protect tenants, even if they break lease rules or they just don't pay rent. In our case, or our last case with Portland, we went for 14 months dealing with a squatter who refused to pay or vacate our $1 million property, and the courts did nothing. We later found out that the eviction judge of Portland was also previously chairman of a local low-income housing nonprofit. Yes, good politics. States like Texas and Florida are much more friendly to home and property owners, giving tenants basic rights, but also protecting owners' rights. If you know you'll potentially be dealing with long-term tenants, try to avoid states like Oregon and California, maybe New York, where they seem to hate owners and protect squatters. Now, tenant-leaning cities essentially rank at D-, so close to F. You can still make money in these cities. Margins will most likely be thin unless you buy in cash, but I can almost guarantee if you do this long enough, you'll spend a substantial amount of time, energy, and money dealing with courts, legal fees to deal with evictions and squatters at some point in time. Avoid these at all costs. Now, if you're committed to going down the route of long-term rentals, a clear alternative is to invest in states like Texas or Florida, who are much more friendly to home and property owners, giving tenants basic rights, but also protecting owners' rights. Investing in landlord-friendly states would rank at a solid B, because at the end of the day, you're still running a low-margin long-term rental. Next are timeshares. Splitting ownership and getting access to a property is something I 100% want nothing to do with, unless it's with a business partner, family, friends, or maybe a vetted investor. Sharing a space with a dozen random people just so I could use a property a handful of weeks throughout the year is just as bad as it sounds. You'll likely create little to no equity, and the only way to exit your timeshare is to find another gullible person to sell it to. Now, timeshares are incredibly limiting in what you can do with them, hard to exit, cost tons of money considering what you actually get, and offer very little benefits other than maybe a nice vacation spot a couple times of the year. This is a big nope for me. Timeshares are an easy F. The only alternative is to buy a second home that can also be used as an Airbnb or vacation rental. You own it, income either pays for the property or generates you cash, and you can take substantial tax deductions as well. Next in our alphabetical list are uninsurable properties. Insurance companies today are becoming more conservative with certain types of policies. Instead of naturally increasing premiums and lowering payouts, it's gone so bad that they have just stopped offering policies altogether. This is particularly true in areas of high risk of natural disasters, such as wildfires, earthquakes, floods, and hurricanes. One of my most recent properties, the Earth Home down in Texas, they're really scared of wildfires right now. The Earth Home is literally buried under 8 feet of earth and rock and made out of completely 100% concrete, and they're scared of wildfires. You literally couldn't set fire onto it if you poured gasoline and lit it on fire. But they're so scared that we almost couldn't find a policy for it. Now, when you're underwriting a property, you must check if it is insurable. If it cannot get insurance, you will not be able to get financing. And if somehow you still buy the property and lose it in a natural disaster or need any type of insurance, you are up the creek without a paddle. Now, you also want to be wary of state-backed insurance policies. Their premiums can be borderline outrageous, and you need to check what they actually cover and if they even have enough funds to pay out. Go ahead and Google California's wildfire insurance policy as an example. I'm not quite sure how they can afford to pay out that many homes if another wildfire disaster hits the state of California. Now, in most cases, if a property is uninsurable, you'll know pretty quickly because your lender will require it during underwriting. And if you buy it with cash, be very careful because your investment is not protected. Without much thought, uninsurable properties are an easy F because I like to leverage properties and keep my cash working, not tied up in an asset that has a high likelihood of being wiped out and exposes me to a bunch of other liability risks. An alternative to this is to find the zip codes in your general market where insurance providers are writing policies and do your search there, tightening that buy box. Assuming that you can find something of similar style, feel, and quality, that's a much better option. Finding insurable properties so you can leverage and protect yourself is easily an A-tier ranking. Next up in our list are unpermitted homes. Now, believe it or not, many great areas across the country do not have a permitting or inspection process. On the surface, the homes may look okay, but underneath, they can be a literal nightmare. There are a lot of contractors and builders who like to cut corners. Sorry to share this with you. The booming Austin market is a phenomenal example where flippers and builders do just enough to get a house sold. Now, when it comes to unpermitted and uninspected homes, it's even worse. Take one of my more recent projects where I purchased an unpermitted flip. I knew I had to replace a lot of the stuff that the previous builder, I use the term builder extremely loosely here, with what the previous builder did. And what I didn't expect were such bad electrical and major plumbing and insulation issues buried deep in the drywall. Actually, everything was not up to code and had to be torn out. Now, fortunately, I saw the writing on the wall and I was able to negotiate a third off of the asking price. But now looking back on it, I could have probably negotiated even more off. But being a builder, I knew how to fix almost everything. And if I didn't know how to, I had the contacts to do so. But for those who are not versed in construction and building codes, don't buy unpermitted structures or properties without heavy consultation or, in the very least, very deep pockets. Unpermitted properties that have not been inspected is another easy F ranking because of so many structural and safety concerns that can pop up, not even talking about the lack of equity that could be gained. The only alternative here is something that has been built to code with proper permits, so you can gain equity. In regions of the US where there are no building code requirements or inspections, photos during the construction process goes a long way to show the quality and the process. But at the end of the day, structures that are built to meet and exceed building codes with permits so you can maximize your safety and the value is easily S tier. Okay, so those are the 10 property deals I would never buy even if I had the money, or even accept for free in many cases. Now, let's rank them in terms of most undesirable in both profitability and just overall headaches. Starting at number 10, dying neighborhoods. These are hard to spot unless you know what to look for and usually decline over several years or even decades. Somehow, Portland's leadership was able to manage to do it in 10 to 12 months. Number 9, industrial areas. Noise, air, and water pollution, and difficult to sell later on. No thank you. Number 8, tenant-leaning landlord-tenant laws. Dealing with eviction of squatters is a horrible experience, and if you can avoid it, please do. Now, I know this is number 8, and I've complained about this a lot in previous videos. Check out and wait till you see what's at the bottom of this list, and it'll make a lot more sense. Number 7, cheap raw land. Now, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. If somebody's trying to sell you 20 acres for $15,000, your first question should be like, why? And usually there's a very good reason why they're selling to you for so cheaply. Number 6, Section 8 housing. Government vouchers do not offset the potential repairs and headaches of dealing with low-income, long-term rental tenants. Occupancy and a steady check does not mean you get to sleep peacefully at night. Number 5, timeshares. It's a joke to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to use a property a few weeks out of the year. Avoid like the plague. Number 4, uninsurable properties. This kills financing and puts you at a major risk of paying for all damages and even liabilities if someone decides to sue you. Number 3, unpermitted homes asking market rate. More builders cut corners than you think, and inspectors don't catch everything. You almost always buy a rat's nest of a problem when you buy an unpermitted, uninspected home. Number 2, lease deals. You don't get 2 of the 3 major benefits of owning property, and you may deal with a corrupt government that will break your lease. And the absolute worst property deals to invest in are HOAs. These are borderline dictatorships, communist societies within America, and they are usually run by the most simple-minded, underqualified individuals ever that just want power. Avoid HOAs because most of the time you're going to be so limited with what you want to do, and their HOA rates are usually managed by somebody that can barely read an Excel spreadsheet, and your rates will continue to climb every single year faster than inflation, and quite often overtaking your taxes and your utility bills, and sometimes even your overall mortgage. If you want to learn more about finding profitable properties and land, watch my free 35-minute training video just down below and book a call with me and my team to see if we can partner up or we can work together and help you find the right property within our program and our community. I'll see you guys in the next video.